Are we at a point now where we're seeing MPs now in Parliament emboldened, Muslim MPs asking for, as you've seen, blasphemy laws, asking defending first cousin marriage, Mohsin Ali holding up the Palestine, Allahu Akbar. These are now British politicians. They're embedded in here. Are we getting close to the point of no return? And are we going to see more and more of this?
I think we're seeing two things. I think the first thing we're seeing is the complete breakdown of the argument that multiculturalism is working. I don't think any serious frontline politician would now make the argument that multiculturalism in Britain has been a success story, with the exception of, let's say, the likes of Sadiq Khan, who maybe are, people might agree with me, are coming at this more from a virtue signaling position than an evidence-based position. What we can see at the recent general election is the rise of sectarianism, MPs being elected simply on the issue of Gaza, and I would argue anti-Israel, if not anti-Semitic positions. We've got communal violence in places like Leicester and Hare Hills, other parts of Britain. We've had the Southport incident, the mainstreaming of ethnic gang violence. We've got very clear evidence that some communities in Britain are not integrating at all into the wider national community. We've got lots of survey evidence that suggests about 40% of British Muslims would like a Muslim-only political party in Britain. We've got worrying evidence of anti-Semitism within British Muslim communities. I don't think anybody can look at Britain and say multiculturalism is working as a state policy. So that's the first thing I think we've discovered, especially since the 7th of October, but also over the last 10 years. The second thing I think we're now beginning to grasp, even though we can't say it out loud, is that we are going to have a very big challenge in this country from the rise and growth of Islam, but also Islamism within our society, that is going to be increasingly pressuring our institutions and our political leaders to bend our way of life and our values around a very different set of values and religion. Now, we've got glimmers of that. The attempt to take Michaela Free School to court because they refused to allow children to pray at lunchtimes. We've got glimmers of that around what the MPs have been doing in the House of Commons. And we've had glimmers of that around the grooming gang scandal and the debate over cousin marriage. My assumption is this is just the start of a much bigger national debate about the extent to which Islam can be integrated and made compatible with British ways of life, and what we are willing to do in order to make it clear that we only have one economic, legal, judicial, and social system, if you like, in this society, and we're not going to tolerate parallel systems in this society. That debate is about to begin, and it's already underway in the Netherlands. It's already underway in Germany. But over the next 5 years, that debate is going to become much more central to mainstream British political life. I interviewed an ex-Hasidic Jew, Izzy Posen, recently, and you can't compare. They're almost incomparable because it's not a violent community, and also rather than being a colonizer, they're exclusive. They don't want more people in. They don't want, But there are parallels. There's some parallels, which is it's a high control authoritarian group in some respects. And he said, like, the stuff that goes on there, tax issues, their own separate silos, economics, education. He's like, that's pretty mad. And they've got like 30,000 people in the country, Hasidic Jews. Imagine if they were 4 or 5 million. I mean, that's what we're dealing with Islam right now. I suppose the question is, to what extent are the 4 or 5 million Muslims in this country as religious or as extreme as the 30 or 40,000 Hasidic Jews? I don't know. Well, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that the first and second generation British Muslims are more religious than their parents and grandparents. This was an argument I tried to make in the aftermath of the Southport atrocities, where people said, well, what has this got to do with migration? I said, actually, it's got a lot to do with migration because, firstly, the family were from Rwanda. Secondly, the boy was first generation. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that first generation younger people continue to take on the cultural behaviors and values and practices of their parents, and that they don't fully integrate to the same degree. And let's wait and see what happens with that case. But I thought it had a lot to do with the migration story.